Hey guys, today I thought it would be fun to do a video about all my favorite things in the kitchen. So tools, appliances, pots and pans, other little trinkets. I spend a ton of time in the kitchen developing recipes, cooking, washing the dishes, and over these years I've accumulated a lot of favorites. A lot of them are sentimental, many of them were gifts like wedding gifts and birthday gifts. And when I was preparing for this video and making my list of the favorite things in the kitchen, I realized that basically every tool and appliance and pot and pan I own is my favorite. I tend to be really selective and I take my time in buying things, and I don't like having duplicates of things. I like to have one really good one. And yeah, this list got really long really quickly, so I had to kind of edit it down so that this video is not hours long. But hopefully I'll get a chance to highlight all of my absolute favorites today, and who knows, maybe it will help you in deciding what to get for your kitchen. I will try to link everything that is linkable down in the description box below, and let's get started. So I'm gonna start out with my favorite appliances, and first we've got my Cuisinart food processor. I love the way it looks, I love the white. I love that it has these paddle buttons. They're super nice and satisfying to use. I know that this brand of food processor lasts forever because I've seen a ton of really old vintage ones in people's kitchens that they got like 20 years ago and they still work. So this is great to use for any time you need to puree or blend something without blending it into a total pulp. For that, I would usually use a high-speed blender. But anytime, let's say I need to mix a batter, I'll mix it in here, or grind oats into oat flour, puree any kinds of vegetables, make vegan cheese like a cashew parm or a cashew ricotta. This also has a few attachments, and it has a grating attachment, which I love. It attaches on top and you push whatever you need to grate through here, and it grates it for you into these perfect strands. And I hate grating things on a box grater, so I love this. So anytime I'm making latkes or a carrot salad, I use this to grate the potatoes or the carrots. So yeah, I absolutely love my food processor. Next is my Vitamix blender. This is a high-speed blender. I think this is the best blender ever. The fact that it's high-speed makes it really good at making things super creamy. So I use it every day for making nut milk, for making really creamy sauces, for pureeing soups, things like that. Vitamix is of course super pricey, but I think it's super worth it. It lasts forever. My cup needs to be replaced because it gets really stained because I use it every single day. But other than that, the base can last forever. This guy we actually got on Craigslist, but it was barely used and it was a great deal. And I've had it for maybe like 6 years since then. So yeah, I love my Vitamix. And the last appliance that I'm gonna talk about today is my juicer. So this is an Omega juicer. This thing is indestructible. I've had it for over 10 years now. It's a masticating slow juicer, so it makes the equivalent of cold pressed juice, and cold pressed juice retains its enzyme-rich properties much longer than juice made with a centrifugal juicer. And centrifugal juicers are usually much more affordable, and they're also great, but this is like another step up if you juice a lot. It's super easy to use, it's super easy to clean. It has other attachments for making things like almond milk or any nut milk, wheatgrass juice, things like that. And I've had it for so long, and I've only had to replace one part once because it cracked, but this was after years of use. Other than that, it's been amazing. Next, I'm gonna talk about my favorite pots and pans. So number one is this beautiful Le Creuset pot. It's enameled cast iron. We got it as a wedding present. I always forget the size of this, the volume. I think it's either 5.5 quarts or 7 quart. The color is beautiful. I think the color is called meringue. And it's truly such a pleasure to cook in this pot. Before I had this, I always wondered if these Le Creuset pots live up to their reputation, and I totally think it does. It carries the heat really evenly, and it just feels so nice. This is currently the only cast iron pot that I have. I would love to get more eventually. The next one I want to get, I think, is maybe a size down from this, and in the orange color. I think the orange color is really nice and classic, and I would love to have that around. Next, with the pans, I'm gonna talk about my cast iron pan. So this is a 12-inch cast iron skillet. The brand is Bobby Flay, very random. My husband has had this since college, so it's been around for a while. Another cast iron brand that I know is great is Lodge. I don't know if Bobby Flay still makes these, but yeah, a good cast iron pan is the best. It carries the heat really evenly, it can be transferred to the oven easily, it fits a lot of stuff, and when you use it a lot and when it's really well seasoned, it's super, super non-stick. It's actually kind of amazing how non-stick a really well-seasoned cast iron pan can be. Then I have a 12-inch all-clad stainless steel pan, which is also really nice, great for even heat. This one I find to be a little more finicky than a cast iron. It can get kind of sticky sometimes, so the key for it to not be sticky is to really, really preheat it super well before adding any kind of oil or fat. But yeah, I love the size and I love that it's lighter than a cast iron if I don't feel like dealing with taking down the really heavy cast iron. And then the last pan that I'm gonna show you is my non-stick skillet, and this is by the brand Green Pan. It's a non-toxic non-stick coating. This is a 10-inch one. It's great. It's super non-stick. The only thing to know about non-stick pans is that they don't last forever. So eventually even the best non-stick pans will have their non-stick coating kind of destroyed and deteriorate. So you do have to replace them, even the really nice ones. So I usually end up replacing this about every year and a half or 2 years once it stops being non-stick. Next, I'm going to talk about my favorite kitchen tools. So number one is this beautiful wooden spatula. I cook with it all the time and I get asked about it all the time. So this is by a brand called Whole Grain Homes. This was actually gifted to me many years ago. Whole Grain Homes is based in Europe, in England, I believe, and it's a father-daughter brand. So the father carves these beautiful wooden tools by hand and the daughter helps him sell them, and they're just so beautiful and unique and homemade. They don't just make spatulas, they make other stuff. And I think their stuff just makes for the best gift for anyone who likes to spend time in the kitchen. And yeah, I hope I have this forever. It's so beautiful. The next tool that I absolutely love is my microplane grater. And this is great for zesting limes and lemons, which I do pretty much every day. It's really good at taking off the zest really well. People also use it for cheese. You can use it for grinding nutmeg, and basically anytime you need to grind something super fine, it's awesome. I actually have to replace this one. You do have to replace them once in a while because they do dull out, but they do last a long time and they're just the best. The next really basic but really awesome tool is a bench scraper. So I initially got this for making bread. It's really useful for shaping a loaf of bread, but I quickly realized that it's an awesome tool for transferring ingredients from one surface to the other. So I use it all the time for, say, I chopped some onions and I need to transfer them to the pot on the stove. And this big flat surface helps me get all of the onions in one fell swoop and get them to the pot really easily. And it really, really speeds up cooking so much. So I got this all-clad stainless steel set of tools as a gift, and they're just awesome. Super classic, and I know that they're gonna last forever. So there's a ladle, there's a slotted spoon, a regular spoon, there's also like a spatula and one of these things, which I don't really use a lot. But yeah, these are just so classic and indestructible, and I love them. Next are my knives, and a good quality sharp knife is so crucial to enjoying the cooking process. My husband actually just sharpened these, so they're extra sharp, and it's just such a pleasure to cook with them. I have a few chef's knives, so I have this flat kind of Japanese style knife, and it's by Wusthof, which is the brand that most of my knives are by. This is another Wusthof, a more classic shape. Another chef's knife. This is another chef's knife that's a little smaller, that's by Dexter Russell. Also great. I've got a Wusthof paring knife, and I've got a Dexter Russell serrated bread knife. I think you only really need 3 knives in your life: a good chef's knife, a good serrated bread knife, and a paring knife, and you'll be good. I love the Wusthof brand. They're super quality, but there are also tons of really good brands out there nowadays and tons of really affordable knife brands, which is really exciting because they can get really pricey really quickly. And these are fun, my mortar and pestles. So I have two. I have a large one that's granite, and I have a smaller one that's just for grinding like small amounts of spices. That's marble, and it's really cute. These are awesome for freshly grinding spices. Freshly ground and toasted spices are so much more delicious than store-bought ones. They're so much more fresh and fragrant, and unfortunately store-bought ground spices can go stale really quickly, but this is great for that. You can also use this for making pesto or guacamole, and I think that mortar and pestles are just such beautiful objects in themselves, and they just look so nice on the counter. Next, I'm going to talk about my cutting boards, and I love wooden cutting boards, even though they are a little more fussy than plastic ones, but they're just so much nicer to work with, and I like taking care of them and oiling them. So I have this one, which is vintage, and it's really cool. I actually got this at a stoop sale in Brooklyn back when I used to live there, and it's just so beautiful. It's clearly been around for a while. It's got a bunch of cuts in it, and I just love using it and having it around. And then of course I've got my Boost Block cutting board. They are an awesome brand of cutting boards. They make all kinds of sizes. They make ones that are even bigger than this. You do need to oil them for them to be around for a while, but other than that, they are amazing. And yeah, I love my Boost Block. My next favorite tool is large sheet trays. Doesn't matter what brand. These are by OXO, but it doesn't matter as long as they're really large. I love using these for roasting vegetables and tofu and tempeh and you name it. They just fit so much stuff on them. I really dislike having two sheet trays in the oven because it messes with the cooking time, but one nice large sheet tray with everything dispersed nicely gives you nice caramelization and charring. Another baking tool that I love is this Pullman loaf pan, and this is like a loaf pan, but it's a little skinnier and taller than a traditional loaf pan, and it's got really sharp edges, which just gives you way nicer bread. Like whenever you're making banana bread, zucchini bread, any kind of bread, it just makes bread that just looks much more professional. It looks tall and the edges are nice and clean, and I just love the way that things come out when I bake them in here. My next favorite is this adorable vintage glass citrus juicer. I use this to juice lemons and limes, which I use all the time in my cooking, and in my experience, thrift stores and vintage stores usually have a bunch of these, and I just love the way it looks, and it's so pleasing to work with a nice glass object like this. Okay, so I love storing leftovers and ingredients in glass jars. It's really my preferred storage, and my very favorite glass jars are these Weck jars. They're just so beautiful, and I love that the lid is glass so it doesn't rust. Like with ball jars, those lids can rust sometimes, and it attaches with these little metal brackets, which I just think is really nice. The jar itself is beautiful. I actually use them as drinking cups as well. They're nice thickness, they're nice size. I love doing like an iced latte in them in the summer, and people always ask me where I got my drinking glasses. The last kitchen tool that I'm gonna share is my dishwashing brush, which is very random, but I love this thing so much. So I do the dishes all day, every day. So I love having a tool that I enjoy using. And to wash my dishes, I use bar soap. So it's really convenient to have a brush when using bar soap. So say this is the bar of soap, I use the brush to get the soap on there, and I wash my dishes. And what I love about this brush specifically is that, of course, the head is wood and natural bristles. So once you're done using it, it can be composted. But also I love that the handle is metal and not wood. So I know that there's a lot of dishwashing brushes out there with wooden handles, but those can get really moldy really quickly because they are getting wet, and they end up needing to be discarded, which is kind of a bummer. So when it's time to replace the brush head, which it's time for me to do it now, I have a new brush head here. All you do is you slide this metal thing down, and the brush head releases. And then you put the new brush in and then slide this thing up and it's secure in there. And I also love using brushes for dishwashing because your hands stay mostly dry. So next I'm going to talk about some of my favorite ceramics, and number one is probably this salt bowl that also has a cork top that's propping up the camera right now. But yeah, it's this little pinch salt bowl, and it's really beautiful and tactile, and I just think it's really important if you cook a lot to keep a bowl of salt that's easily accessible on your counter or near your cooking surface. I think using your fingers to take pinches of salt and salt your food really helps you develop a feel for how much to season your food, and just really makes you a better cook in the end. And I think if I ever were to collect any kind of ceramic kitchenware, it would probably be cups. I just love how utilitarian they are and how they have the potential to be really, really beautiful. So I have quite a few beautiful favorite cups from different ceramicists, from different places, gifted by friends. This one my friend brought back for me from Morocco, which is just so beautiful and priceless. And this is an East Fork cup, which brings me to the next subject. So these are my East Fork pottery bowls. And East Fork Pottery is just such a beautiful pottery company. I love all their stuff. I have their cups, and I especially love their bowl. I think it might be called the Everyday Bowl or something like that. This is primarily what we use for most of our meals. I love the size, I love the thickness, and they do really beautiful glazes. They do limited edition glazes that they come out once in a while, and then they have like their stock glazes. So each one is a little bit different. Just so nice to eat out of a beautifully tactile object like this. And then the last ceramic that I'm going to show you is this beautiful mixing bowl that I got secondhand somewhere, maybe at Housing Works in New York, but it's just really, really nice. I love the size, I love how it's a little bit cracked inside. I love the color, I love the glaze. And this is my main and favorite mixing bowl. And now a few miscellaneous things. So this is my favorite apron. It's by Heather Taylor Home. They do a lot of really beautiful checkered and striped prints. It's got nice pockets, and I love the look, and I love having it hanging in my kitchen. The fabric is also really, really beautiful. Really beautifully woven. Yeah, it's my favorite apron. I love having beeswax candles around the whole house, including the kitchen. I just think they create such a nice, cozy cooking atmosphere. Something about having the beautiful yellow glow of the candle in the kitchen really inspires me to cook. And I like beeswax candles specifically. I love the yellow glow. I love the way they smell. I'm not really a scent person, and a beautiful unscented beeswax candle just has the best scent in my opinion. And last but not least is my Berkey water filter. I'm not gonna bring it over here because it's heavy, but I have it set up on a stool in the corner of my kitchen, and it's just an awesome filter for rental situations and just all around. It's a gravity filter, which means that you pour unfiltered water into the top chamber of the filter, and it filters through a filter element, and the clean water pours down into the bottom chamber with the help of gravity, and there's a little faucet at the bottom where you extract the water. In my experience, Berkey makes really, really clean water, and what's awesome about it is that the filter elements can be cleaned and they last forever, like years sometimes, depending on how much water you filter through them, but they last a really, really long time. So it's a pricey initial investment, but it's really, really great. And for a more aesthetically pleasing version of the Berkey, I wish I knew about this before I had gotten my Berkey, check out the Walter filter. It's the Berkey filtering system, but inside really beautiful ceramic vessels made by a ceramicist. So those are some of my very favorite things in the kitchen. I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, most of the things that I mentioned today will be linked below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.